Yes, I'm originally from that region. I don't know if the settlement where I was grown up is actually destroyed or not, because there is no mobile signal since yesterday with that specific area in Lugansk region. But yesterday there were the heaviest ever in that region fights and battles, because Russians, with the usage of volley fire system Grad, first tried to burn out everything in Shastya, which is the settlement, the town bordering with occupied Luhansk region. So this is the checkpoint, Shastya checkpoint, which never worked actually, because Russians denied to open it from their side. But there is a bridge between occupied, there was a bridge until yesterday between occupied territory and controlled by Ukrainian side part of Lugansk region, bridge over the river Siversky Donets. And first Russian troops used that fire system, that volley fire system Grad, in order, like I said, to burn out and to make everyone escape, like they predicted mistakenly. And then they moved with tanks from Lugansk, which is on the hill, a little bit down to Shastya, crossing the river on the bridge. And there was very heavy battle. There were a lot of fakes yesterday from Russian channels of information. Like Shastya is already seized. It is occupied. But Shastya is, in Ukrainian language, it means directly, it means happiness. And happiness is still in the hands of Ukraine. So according to all the verified information from yesterday, all the tanks and all the Russian troops at that precise point were repulsed, they were backed, the bridge was exposed in order to break this possibility to move from occupied territory to government control one. Stanitsa Luganska is also under the fire. Russians they know that in let's say land operation, when they attack like face to face, even with all this kind of artillery, they are much weaker than Ukrainian defense line and than Ukrainian strategic points. And that is why they're using the air attack, they're using airstrikes and missile attack on strategic positions of Ukraine. So how the situation looks like now strategically? They have invaded, and they're trying to encircle, let's say, Ukrainian army and Ukrainian citizens from three directions. From the north, where they cross the border from Belarus territory in Kyiv region and in Chernihiv region. And as of now, there are fights because Ukrainian army is like preventing huge and massive Russian troops to come to Kyiv. Because what we have now, this is missiles attack and some kind of specific local groups of diversants. Ludmila, if I'm okay, diversants from Ukrainian, how to translate it into English, I'm not sure.
Maybe I can help us a little bit later with diversants.
But there are still no massive troops like they didn't around Kyiv. And Ukrainian army from different directions in Chernihiv region and in Kyiv region are right now preventing them to come. At the same time, they organized the massive attack from the south using occupied Crimea. So that is why the heavy shellings are now in Kherson. But according to official information, they haven't moved deeper. At the same time, they have seized yesterday, which is very important, they have seized Chernobylska nuclear power station. And that was, there were also heavy battles, but Ukrainians have at that is actually the only one place and only one battle when Ukrainian army made a step back. when it came to Chernobylska nuclear power plant. And now it is fully under control of people who don't care what will be the consequences for Ukraine, Europe, and even for their own citizens as well. At the same time, there were already signs of first fightings around Zaporizhia, where we have the biggest nuclear power station in Europe, the most powerful one and the biggest. So that is why I think all those, let's say, emotions which come today reasonably, they are not just understandable, but they are reasonable, both from me and from Alexei, because we really, since 2014, we really felt a big gap. We're experts, but we felt a big gap between our understanding, even if it was a bit emotional always, between our understanding of the threats coming from Russia and the understanding which was presented by our European colleagues, experts on the one hand, and politicians on the other. And now, unfortunately for us, the understanding from the European public is not adequate to the real threat and moment. So even if, so my suggestion here is that even if it is okay for major European governments to leave Russia without severe sanctions, to leave Ukraine without offensive weapons, without even non-fly zone or above our country, just to make our skies safe. Everything else will be done by our army. We don't have problems with fighting on the land. We don't ask any foreign soldier to come to Ukraine. We ask to make Russia not able to fire and to shell from the air. And this is not okay still for any European actor. There is no consensus about that. Okay, but if you are okay with leaving Ukraine with that kind of threats, why I am emphasizing on the nuclear power plants? It will be not just a Ukrainian problem. If something will happen, like in back 1986 in Chernobyl, and taking into account all the madness which supports and actually is the basis for Putin's actions in Ukraine, I don't doubt that he can act against, and he can attack and use actually even the nuclear power plants to create a catastrophe maybe. This is very important that since the beginning of the heaviest shellings and fires, which are taking place in Kharkiv, Sumy, Kyiv, Kherson, and they try to spread their presence on the territory of Ukraine, violating Ukrainian border from different sides, east, north, and south. But at the same time, up to now, they haven't succeeded in deepening into Ukrainian territory in none of these directions. So Kyiv is the best their result as of now, because they're trying their best to break the defense line of Ukrainian army in Kyiv and in Chernihiv region in order to seize Kyiv and to occupy Kyiv. And they do it not by mistake, of course, but consciously, because as soon as they predict, as they are in Kyiv, so the issue for them will be resolved, because who captured the capital, that can dictate the new conditions. And all those sanctions which are just coming maybe somewhere later, they may be just useless, absolutely, even discussing them, if they are not launched now, if not yesterday. And during all these fights, that's very important that none of Ukrainian soldiers nowhere in any region of Ukraine no one have surrendered. No one. It was the dream of Putin to have the flashback to what happened with police in Crimea or in Donetsk and Luhansk, where lots of people working for law enforcement bodies and even some of the representatives of the army stayed in occupied regions and started working for aggressor. But nothing like that is going on the ground right now, because this is a different army and this is a different situation. These people are fighting consciously and they are much more motivated than any out of those Russian soldiers which surrendered, by the way, yesterday. From Ukrainian army, none. And even Russians didn't create any stories for their propaganda with unknown Ukrainian soldier to surrender. That's important. And I think that these people, they both from professional point of view, from military point of view, and not even, I have to speak about that from moral point of view, they deserve the support they lack. So as of now, this is first of all non-fly zone. This is not about, of course I understand this logic, like not understand, but I know this logic. Like we don't want the direct attack or the direct, meeting between NATO forces and Russia. But even if you don't need this meeting, it can happen any moment you will not expect it, like in Ukraine. Right now, I'm in Warsaw. And all the things I have been hearing here from ordinary Polish people, crying for Ukrainians and supporting Ukrainians, is that we are next. We are next, say Polish, who is the same size country comparing to Ukraine. We are next. And they understand us much better than anyone else here in Europe. So I think even not to support emotionally and from a point of view of realpolitik, this is a rational argument to make Ukraine be able to counteract Russia in those, let's say, meaning that we lack our own capacities, like to prevent these awful missile attacks on Ukrainian cities. Russians are saying that they do not target residential areas. This is fully false, because these missiles attack this night, for instance, have destroyed the building on the left bank of Kyiv. This is Poznyaki district of the Kyiv. So I think this photo is already very popular. The same story in Kharkiv and the suburbs of Kharkiv. The same story in Sumy, where the heaviest shellings are going right now. The same story was yesterday in Uman, where also one woman, I don't remember on the front page of which international media she is today, because it was a miracle that she was not fired and was not killed after this kind of attack directly in the building with lots of apartments, and she survived. So that is how the situation looks right now. Yes, there is much more resistance in Ukraine than Russians predicted. This is clear. This is clear because no one surrendered. They know that Ukrainian soldiers will fight up to their last breath, let's say, and not only those who are soldiers now. Thousands of Ukrainians are mobilized to so-called territorial defense forces. As soon as the general mobilization is also going on right now, people are mobilized, both men and women, to the army. So Russians will never receive calm Ukraine legitimizing occupation. And our common idea now to defend local people who cannot fight, children, elders, people who like not soldiers, like women who cannot fight, because we have a lot of women in Ukrainian army and in territorial defense as well. But there are those who cannot fight, and they will. Yesterday, I talked to one of my very close friends who is still in Lugansk region. She has 2 small kids. She moved a little bit from the front line to the north, but still in the Lugansk region. And I asked her if she, because from yesterday, the general evacuation is going on in Lugansk region. So people are organized, especially women and children are organized and evacuated officially, because the Russians are just burning everything there with distance attack, with distance weapons, missiles and wall fire systems. And she told me about her impression. Like, I'm watching the news from Kharkiv, from Kyiv, from Sumy, and I don't know if there is any reason to move anyway, because it seems they are trying to make the situation equally awful everywhere, that we shouldn't even try safe place here in Ukraine. And she is so right with that. As of now, Ukrainian army, without any, even without any my emotions, besides of actually my emotions, Ukrainian army is the best army in Europe, the best one, because no one expected, even Russians, that they will not be able to capture not to be able to capture Ukrainian cities during first hours. They are not able even now, but we need complete change of position of our partners, complete change. It's not time to think about fears from the past, some concerns of Russia. We need to think about our concerns and about how to survive.